Welcome to Ready to Exhale, where Black women's voices and well-being are centered. Today, we are joined by Latham Thomas, founder of Mama Glow. Let's jump right in. Welcome, Latham, to Ready to Exhale. It's so good to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'd like to open up our time together, our conversation today, just with a brief grounding breath. I like to do this as we open up each episode. So I want to invite you into that moment with me. And also for those of you that are watching, listening, I want to invite you into this moment with us to just pause and ground ourselves before we jump in. So, you can close your eyes if you want to, you don't have to. And yeah, just kind of feel your body in the seat that you're sitting in, or if you're standing, just notice how your feet are touching the ground. Just take a deep inhale through your nose and exhale. Another deep inhale and exhale. One more big inhale here and exhale. All right. You can gently open your eyes if they were closed. Wiggle your fingers and toes, maybe stretch a little bit. Yeah. Thank you for joining me in that breath. My first question for you is, what is bringing you joy right now? What's been bringing you joy lately? We got so much going on in our world. Um, where are you finding joy?
I am finding joy in loving relationships and tender moments of solace. I like being alone. So, like my walks in the morning. Uh,
Mm,
I'm finding joy in the sunshine. We had such a beautiful sunny day yesterday. It was really cold, but it was so sunny. And it was just like a reminder that spring is upon us.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And then just with fruitful relationships, there's people that I love that I get to see very often. And just being in community is brings me joy, especially as we navigate these moments
Mm,
that are more challenging, finding
yeah.
the calm in the sea of life through those, you know, those loving relationships.
Mm,
My son is in LA, but he's coming back to New York to visit. And so that brings me joy. I get to talk to him every day, which is really sweet. So I think it's just community for me
yeah.
is what's feeding me so much right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would have to agree. Community is what's getting me through. My
Mhm.
people. When I feel a little out of sorts, that's who I turn to. I reach for them. I'm going to go see my mom
Aw.
this weekend. She's 84. Wrap my arms around her. I'm actually going to bring her back here with me to
Oh,
spend a
that's
week. So just eating yummy food,
mhm.
connecting with my people, is what brings me joy as well, so I resonate with that so much. For listeners who may be meeting you for the first time, can you introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about who you are?
Sure. My name's Latham Thomas. I'm currently in New York City and Brooklyn, where I live for the past 3 decades. I've been living in New York, and the founder of a global maternal health and education platform called Mama Glow. We train doulas, nurse care managers, and work within hospital systems and insurance companies to bridge the disparities in maternal health outcomes to improve maternal health writ large in this country, but with a focus on improving maternal health for Black women and really ensuring that this next generation, also birth workers and caregivers, are this bridge to better birth and are developing a culture that will change how we look at and perceive, but also how we experience birth. And so,
Yeah.
I think many of us know in this country that there's been a lot of draconian laws and legislative action that's prevented safe reproductive health care to take place. A lot of that we see with abortion. But many people don't realize that on the same continuum, if you really look at women's health care from reproductive justice lens, we see that from menses to menopause, there are so many fractured experiences and also so many laws, right? And policies that actually harm women and femmes. And so a lot of what we're doing is helping people to understand what we're fighting for, what we're
Yeah.
protecting, educating people so they can have the knowledge base to make better healthcare decisions. And also for people who are within power to make decisions about our healthcare outcomes in our bodies, so they understand actually what they're protecting, and what they should be fighting up against.
Yeah.
And that requires information that's not readily taught. And so that's a lot of our focus is ensuring that the things that people aren't learning in medical school or in public health or in, their rounds as OBGYNs, there's other information that's really important that a lot of the caregivers are doing and have been doing for
Mm.
thousands of years, right? That
Mhm.
clinicians aren't practicing. And so we bring back these traditions, we reclaim them as sacred, but we also integrate them in places where like our health is critical
Yeah.
and ensure like not just our survival, but like our community thrives. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a little bit of something, something you're
Yeah.
doing over in your neck of the woods.
Yeah. We're just doing, I mean, it's global. Like if
Yeah,
we don't
you're
just do it,
making a big, big impact. You're
yeah, we
making a
don't just do it
gigantic.
here. I mean, I'm based here, but like our
Sure.
doulas all over the world, which is
Yeah,
great. And, our services thankfully are all over the world too. So if anybody is like, looking for a doula or looking to become a doula, they can do that, through
yeah,
as well. Yeah.
yeah. Ah, beautiful work. You've built, such a powerful movement. When you think about your work today,
Mhm.
what feels most alive or urgent for you right now?
I mean, my personal, uh, I would say my personal sort of dharma right now or like the mandate on my life is to teach. So I
Mhm,
focus my energy there. That's where I'm called right now. I was
mhm,
initially called to be a birth worker, and now I've been called to be an educator. And then beyond that, like one who impacts culture. So using digital advocacy as a way to ensure that people get the knowledge, like creating solutions and award-winning tools that will help shift culture. So that's where I put a
mhm.
lot of my energy now, which allows us to reach a lot more people, but
Yeah.
also like make impact that then can actually move into places where we can really harness transformation, right? And really
Mhm.
harness a shift that we need to see. So it's not just about like, oh, we're seeing these harms or we're seeing these actions, but we're not seeing like a response. Like everyone is working on a response and everyone is working on, impacting in a positive way. Like, but it
Right.
doesn't mean that it's, reaching everyone, and so a lot of what we're trying to do is make sure that it does, right? That people who
Mhm.
do need the information or people who are, in positions of power do have the best knowledge, right?
Right.
So that they can make impact, as it relates to maternal health, right? And for, I guess, a baseline for people in this conversation, when we talk about doulas, they are non-clinical care providers who offer like emotional support, physical support, education, advocacy tools. If you have a partner present, they're going to help them too. They're like a cheerleader for your birth, right? Or a producer for your birth. but these are people who help you along the reproductive life course, right? We have people who can help us as we move through menses, obviously pregnancy, abortion, loss, menopause. All of these are junctures where we need hand holding. And so a doula is there to provide that help, right? Our doula, population is mostly going to be like fertility, birth, postpartum. So that's where we really focus a lot of our attention and energy in terms of education. Then also with parents, right, and families, making sure that they have the best tools available to them. So to me, it's like as I see a nation that's moving to anti-intellectualism, that's moving into um, stripping rights, stripping, away hard-earned, policy and what we thought was like, decided case law. Um, I feel like people just need a lot more, to hold on to, in
Mhm.
a time also that, like, all the information is sort of at your fingertips, but then at the same time, it's too much, right? So how
Right.
do we like decipher what we should actually be consuming? It's so challenging for people right now. And I grew up in a time where we had like the library, we had encyclopedias, we had atlases, like
Mhm,
we had to
mhm.
look stuff up at the library.
Yeah.
Now you just go on your phone and it tells you
Mhm,
something in a second, and it may or may not be true or applicable to you, right?
mhm.
So I think having that human interaction and that support of individuals along the care continuum is so critical right now.
Yeah,
Um, and going back to community, right? It's literally having built-in community. Yeah.
that's right, that's right. So good. What first called you into this work?
Yeah. It came really and I appreciate you using the word calling because,
Mhm.
it was a calling for me and still is. One where I was well, 2 things happened. I think when I was really young, it was through my mom's pregnancy, and the second time was, like, after, my son's birth. The first story of knocking as a child was, my mother was pregnant. At the time, I was 4 years old. My aunt and my great aunt were also pregnant at the same time. They were due within a month of each
Wow.
other, March, April, and May. And so back to back, there were these babies coming in the spring. And I was watching these beautiful Black women like walking around with these full bellies and talking about their pregnancies and their bodies. And my mom was like a big body literacy person. So she taught me anatomy. She got me the Grey's Anatomy coloring book. So I learned everything because children at a certain age, when you're 4, you're like so voracious with this, appetite, with your vocabulary. Like little
Mhm.
4-year-olds are like kind of little mini computers. And so I had all of this information that I had absorbed about the body and and felt like really excited about my sister that was coming, but more so fascinated about birth itself. And,
Mm.
I remember, you know, even talking about the anatomical, names for the body parts, which I would, like, recite. And we're at, the grocery store one day, and my mom's, like, 7 months pregnant, and this person comes up, and they're like, "Oh, your mother has a baby in her tummy." I said, "No, my mother has a baby in her uterus, and it's gonna vagina, right? It's gonna come out of her vagina. Like, let's not get it twisted, right?" So they were
Right.
like, "Oh my gosh," and she's like, "Well, I'm teaching her all the names," and she's really proud of that. But I'm also proud of it because it was like a moment where my mom really, showed that, you know, in action, what it looks like to own your body and
Mhm.
your body and also feel comfortable. And I think that so much of what I learned also kept me safe because I could name my parts. I could understand like the boundaries between my body, where my body begins and where it ends and where someone else's body begins.
Mhm.
So that autonomy I thought was very important at the time as well. And so seeing that, in the beginning, I think was important. My cousin and I would stuff like little dolls, like the Cabbage Patch dolls that we had. We would stuff them under our shirts and pretend to deliver each other's babies, you know?
Yeah.
Dad as a child. And so all of that was kind of at the beginning, right? I'd see plants.
Yeah.
And then it would really kind of come to like a head, I would say, when I was pregnant with my son. He was we were living in New York City, and I didn't know where I would deliver here. I found this birth center that was based 7 blocks, I think, from where we were living. So,
Mhm.
or like maybe 9 blocks away, because we were on 23rd Street. It was on 14th Street, and it was amazing because we're at 222 and they were at 222. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like the numbers, like I love this." But also, it was right next door to this nightclub that I used to go to. So I was like, "Oh, like we used to party over here. This is perfect." And so I feel like all of that alignment was cool. And when I had my son, the day that I went into labor, it was so beautiful and so powerful, but also I was visited by my ancestors. I had
Mhm.
this cover of safety. I had this out of body experience that I could come to name biochemically now. At the time, I didn't have language for it or even like to the science to ground it in. And
Yeah.
now I can explain to people like the neural pathways, but also the physical pathways and the spiritual pathways that one sort of
Yeah.
under experiences, but also this sort of rite of passage that the body and spirit undergo for
Mhm.
birth to occur, and like for you to experience the birthing rites, right? And
Right.
and then postpartum rites on the other side of that. And so for me, that was a transformative experience. It was beautiful, it was powerful. And I knew within 20 minutes of my son being born that I would help people in this work. I knew then. It took
Wow.
me a long time to come to it because I'm a Taurus and I come to a lot of things through resistance, but
Yeah.
I found my way, it took a couple of years, and once I kept getting that call, I finally responded, and I was accepted into a doula fellowship program. It was right after I was at an ashram, and I was teaching there, and they had given me, a reading, a Vedic astrology reading, and during the reading, they said, "You're supposed to mother the mother." And I was like, "Oh."
Mm,
It was very clear. And he gave me some dates, and the dates corresponded to this email that I got, and the email was an
wow.
acceptance. And this is by the time back when we did not use email. So this is like
Right, right.
something you check maybe like once every 2 months because it was just like you were still getting mail, like letters,
Right. Mhm.
mailbox. So this is decades ago. And that was the other thing, right? Like um I got that email and I was like, oh, this is I was supposed to do this, right? And so
Mm,
I was like, "Okay, noted." And then I just listened at that point, and really things opened up in ways that I can't
mm,
really describe. And,
mm.
there was just, like, an alignment with, the energy of ease and
Yes.
of love and of divinity, but also of service. And so I think that, when you're called into service leadership, um, it's not always the timing, right? Like people think that,
Right,
oh, you'll get this. I always say calling is not convenient. Like you never get it when like nothing's going on in your life. It's like everything's going on,
right.
chaotic, not prepared. And then next thing you know, you have to do this thing that God is
Yeah.
on your plate. And you're like, I got so much already to do. But then this is the time.
Yes.
And so you don't get to choose the time. It's like
Right.
not up to you. But what is up to you is you can choose like, when you answer it and how, you don't get to
Mhm.
choose, like, when it comes, right?
Right.
And so sometimes it's like people get these, reminders that they're called to something for years, and they don't respond in with action, right?
Mhm.
And, and sometimes the ignoring of it can result in pain,
Mm,
especially the work that is supposed to be on the other side of that is,
yeah.
uh, is meant for the world, right? And so
Mm,
it's meant to come through you, then sometimes you get louder messages and louder
yeah.
sort of, demonstrations of what it is that's, like, calling you in. So
Mm,
my, suggestion, but also I think an invitation really to all of us as we think about, like, what's sitting on our hearts and what, is meant to be expressed, right? And also
mhm,
meant to be, like, actualized is,
mhm.
to always be in a dialogue, with spirit about listening and
Yeah.
always be in a posture of receiving so that you can also know when it's time for something.
Mm,
So
mhm.
things have moved on. You know, there are
Yeah.
moments where you're past something and the iteration of the work needs to change or what you're meant to do
Mhm.
shift.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
because sometimes the thing itself is scary to think about, like, actually acting upon, or you don't
Yeah.
know what the path forward will look like. I didn't know what it would look like, I just did it, and I
Yeah.
think that, it was just the one foot in front of the other, kind of just taking each step revealed a path, and I think, for me, that works. I know for a lot of people it feels scary because it's really just faith, right? But,
Mhm.
um, but it is important, especially if you are pulled into, you know, a spiritual dialogue, especially because sometimes for some of us, there's like stalking happening where some things are
Mm,
not going away. Um, that's meant for you to address, right? In some way.
right.
So always listen for things like this, but always know that um even if you're not ready in the moment, there's ways that we get fortification along the way to prepare us. Uh,
Yeah.
and also, if the timing isn't right and you don't have or you cannot see ahead, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how to even approach this or where to start. The most important thing with your calling is really acknowledging that it's there,
Mm,
acknowledging this thing that's sitting on you that needs a place to root. And even if you
mm,
can't devote yourself to it right now,
yeah.
receiving it, acknowledging it, and then like really thinking about like how to hold it and nurture it while you prepare yourself to, make space for it.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to, you know, um, handle when it's sometimes too big.
Yeah.
And what I've seen for some people is that just holding it can um can call in the right people, can call in
Right.
circumstances for you to be able to like then unpack it a little bit.
That's
So
right.
so yeah, so I would say those are some of the things that come up for me around, the calling, but it is not gonna come when you're like, you're divorced and you're on the beach and you're like, life is perfect and like you got your new job and your new car and your house is clean and all the things.
Right, right, right.
It's like literally you're in the mix. Things are in flux. Things are
Right.
feeling chaotic and you are feeling sometimes ungrounded. And I think that one of the things that's so beautiful when you're called into and pulled into this vortex of power that is about you really standing in your most powerful is
That's
that
right.
for many of us, it is like a transition into a new version of yourself or a better version or something that you can hold on to now and and really like live into
That's right.
and think about like what might have been happening in other times in your life and you're like, whoa, if I would have just sat with this, right? And I talk to a lot of people will say, yeah, if I would have just sat with that thing that was
Mhm.
bothering me for years, where would I be now? And it's not about
Mhm.
linear, right? And it's not about, you know, it's just about answering, right? Not about
Yeah.
like, oh, I'll be here or this far ahead. It's not about that. It's more just about like the space that you give and the grace that you give to hold
Yes.
something that sometimes feels too big, knowing that you can grow into it. Like if we have that awareness that we can grow
Yeah.
into the thing that's been put on our hearts, we can do incredible things in the world. And I just had the faith that I could grow into whatever this is. I didn't know what it would be a business. I didn't know I just was like,
Right.
let me just answer what spirit's asking me to do and just be
Right.
obedient. And if I'm obedient, like the answers will come because they'll just
Mhm.
come through me. Right. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how it worked. And so that listening, I think, was really a powerful tool
Mhm.
to guide me in, the design of everything that we do. I just listen so much more than anything else. And I feel my way through a lot of the decision making
Yeah.
yeah, we do things that are impactful really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. It's reminding me of, when I got the calling to start Exhale. I was in my basement. I had walked away from my corporate job. And I remember I was in a lot of transition in my life. My daughters were youngest had just graduated high school. My oldest was off uh, adulting, moved far away, and just deep transition. And then the pandemic, it was the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of uncertainty. Um, my transition into coaching and different things that I was trying to do, public speaking, all came to a halt. And I just was like, what is going on? And I just remember getting quiet in my basement, meditating, just listening, as you said. And it was like it just dropped into my spirit, like, this is the thing, and I was like, "Oh, am I gonna start this thing? What am I doing with this thing?" So I held on to it for a while, like you talked about holding, like, I held it
Mm,
because it felt really big, it felt, kind of impossible in that moment, "How am I gonna do this?" And, I just kept meditating, calling in my ancestors, like, just
mm,
holding it. And I love that you said allowing it to take root. I that really resonated with me, like, allowing it to kind of root down in me too. Um, and then I started sharing it with my close family and friends and realizing that, this was something that people needed.
yeah,
And then one foot in front of the other, just a little baby step and a little baby step and a little baby step. Um, and that was, gosh, 6 years ago. So, um, yeah, I think the listening part is really key, to hearing what may be next. For some of you that may be listening or watching this episode, maybe you're in that transition period or you're questioning what's next for you.
mm,
What I'm hearing, in this conversation is, the encouragement to pause, to
mm,
slow down, and to listen. And we listen with our ears, we listen with our spirit, our soul. We can, listen through, like you said, things were showing up in your life that it was like all signs were pointing to this is the thing. This is the thing that's next for you. So
mhm.
slow down and listen. And it's hard for us to slow down, but I want to encourage you, if you're listening, to just slow down. Just slow down and pay attention and listen. As Black women, we have everyday stressors, and those stressors are compounded by systemic racism. This stress weathers our mental and emotional health. It's imperative to move this stress out of our bodies so we can live healthier and happier lives. Exhale app is a resource to partner with you in your well-being journey. To download, go to the App Store and Google Play. Now, let's get back to our episode. So,
Yeah.
Latham, you've been a leader in the birth justice movement for many years. And so, for listeners who may be newer to this conversation, can you share why birth justice is such an important issue, for Black women?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people are aware of the statistical disparities between white and black women in this country when it comes to birthing. On average, black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth or due to childbirth related causes than white women. Uh, in cities like New York, that number jumps to 8 to 12 times. Other areas in the country where we have really stark maternal health outcomes, that number can jump even higher. Where we have maternity care deserts, where people are more impacted because they can't get access to OBGYNs. So we see a couple different, layers, I think, that make this issue so critical. One is that, Black women are experiencing when they're going into medical settings, medical racism. They're experiencing bias. They're experiencing, you know, what we call obstetric violence, right? And
Yes.
so these harms we constantly see are because they're not being listened to, they're not being heard, their needs are not being met in these settings. I think what's critical to understand also is that all of our institutions are inherently carceral in nature. So, how our prison systems run, how our school systems run, how our hospital systems run are the same. And so, how people are treated in these spaces um, is critical to look at, like how we confine birthing people, how we enforce institutional responses, right? And really like think about like how most recently I saw something like where um, some people were court ordered a C-section in the middle of their labor by a judge.
Ah,
Virtual hearing by a judge ordering a C-section
wow.
after a particular birth outcome. You cannot do that, right? So this is, our justice system. How is that interfering with the decision that a doctor makes for a patient and whether that's the right decision for them? Not everybody's a good candidate for a C-section, right?
That's right.
And especially if it's a non-medical, event, right? Or non-medical emergency. So, I think that's important to shine a light on is that like there are a lot of experiences that Black women have that feel akin to how folks will talk about experiencing uh, having experiences within our justice system, right? With the state sanctioned violence that we see at the hands of like police officers, right?
Right, right.
So excessive force that happens within those settings, we also see what we would consider excessive force in birth settings, right? So
Mhm.
there's not like it's not like a difference in a sense, right? Um, Black women are not safe because we've actually um, never atoned for how we get to a place where our medical model has was developed and I would say advanced by the study, the forcible what's the word I'm looking for? The contributions of Black women against their will, where they were used to advance medical outcomes through research.
Right.
And we're looking at the 1700s primarily when this was a nascent form of medicine,
Mhm.
gynecology. And in the South, what you saw were slave hospitals where you had bond women who were loaned out to hospitals for procedures and treatments that would fix really horrifying gynecological issues, primarily things like obstetric fistula, but issues that were exacerbated by the assaults that they had endured within the settings that they had lived and worked, right? Which were
Right.
within slave plantations, right? And so these were women who were loaned to these physicians, and who were operated on against their will, without consent, and without anesthesia, even though it was widely available at the time. This is the foundation of our medical model. This is embedded in medicine. It's embedded in our medical journals, where
Mm,
they have written for hundreds of years that Black women are impervious to pain. And so when you go into a medical setting, people think that you are exaggerating, because how could you possibly be in pain? You experience pain differently or not at all, right? And so all of these things are factors, again, hundreds of years in the making, that create vulnerability for Black women. And
that's
it's
right.
not because we're Black that we're vulnerable, right? It's not because something's wrong with us because we're Black. It's our Blackness that is causing these issues, because racism is at the core, right?
That's right.
And
That's right.
so, yeah, so being Black isn't the issue, racism is the issue.
That's right.
And I think it's important for people to understand that, you know, before, because people love to, they love to, try to funnel to things like diet, complacency with doctor's appointments, skipping doctor's appointments, all these kind of things. And here's what I'll say. Um, for the most part, when we're looking at maternal health outcomes and who's most vulnerable, Black women are the highest educated in the United States in terms of, like, race and class. These are individuals who have postdoctorate degrees, who are the highest educated in the nation. They're the most vulnerable. So the ones who are the smartest, right? So you would think if someone has education, they would also attend their appointments. They would also be having a dialogue with their doctors. They would also be reading. They would also be informed. The most informed people are having the worst outcomes. That says something about the system, right?
That's right. That's
So
right.
it's not because they're not eating well. It's not because they're not taking their prenatals. It's not because they're not going to appointments. It's not because they're unknowledgeable. It's because they're moving within systems where they are not getting access to equitable, quality, affordable, safe, respectful maternity care, right?
That's
They're
right.
getting something different. And they are dealing with people who, by the way, sometimes want to put you in your place. Sometimes you're upset,
Mm,
or if you speak up or you speak in a way, I don't like your tone, whatever, you're punished for that.
mhm.
Ridiculous that people pretend like you're not. You are absolutely punished for speaking in a way that makes someone else uncomfortable in every setting that happens. So why would we think that birthing settings would be unique, and that you would not see a consequence for that? Of course, there's a consequence. And the consequence is neglect. The
Mm,
consequence is disrespect, coercion, um, also separation of family, where your family members come, they can't come see you, or forcing people out of the room so you're isolated, right? There's so many ways that your knowledge and your voice are weaponized against
mm,
you, and
mhm,
that you experience harm at the hands of the people who are supposed to protect you, that Black
mhm.
people talk about all the time. And then people, well, no. And then they only want to say it's real when they see it on video. And they
Right.
say, well, you know, no, this is happening all the time. Why is it still happening?
That's right.
Because we're in places where people are not held to account,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
If
mhm.
systemically speaking, they're not held to account. Just like if something happens and a police uses force and an accident occurs, or something that could naturally be the response to excessive force occurs, they're not held accountable. So we don't have a system of accountability when people who are in positions of power, who do things that they should not do, that should not have led to death, are not held accountable. So if we don't hold these people accountable, then guess what? It
Right.
doesn't really mean anything if a mother comes into the hospital healthy and doesn't leave alive,
That's right.
right? So for Black women, I think about, well, it's not just about looking at this landscape and negatively forecasting. Because a lot of people will say, oh my gosh, this is scary. I think also a tactic is scaring people into not doing it. Like if I hear everywhere that birth is unsafe and this is that, I don't think I want to do it. So there is
Right.
on the other side of this pendulum, there's a balance between informing people and scaring them, right? And
Right.
incapacitating them. The way we have to think about this knowledge that we're sharing is about how do we inform and inspire into action and keep people ignited and feeling confident and safe and excited about this process. Also understanding like that we're entering into systems that are not designed to support us, right? What
That's
does it
right.
look like outside? And so it's so important what we think about is building something different that people can
Mm,
also live into. It's building infrastructure for people to have out of hospital birth and birth with midwives. It's building infrastructure so people can actually birth with doula support and also have doula access expanded, right? It's
mhm.
making sure that we insist on healthy wage for our care providers, right? It's making sure that people have things like paid leave so they can actually stay home with their children and actually raise
Right.
them, right? So there has to be this type of conversation. It cannot just be like safe, hopefully you survive childbirth. And so I want
Right.
women, as you think about birthing, I don't want you to just think about, well, something horrible could happen and I just want to get out safely. No, you should demand a beautiful and transcendent and safe and gorgeous, empowering birth because you deserve that. It's part of your birthright. It is really,
Mm,
it's a divine experience. It's your chance to literally dance with spirit and your baby together and to create but also to give life, to transform, to become another version of yourself, to shed your ego, to become this incredible and powerful version of yourself. Like that's a waiting,
mm,
and what gets in the way is this process where people are actually harming
right.
harming harming women who are
Yeah.
just going into birth. And so, an important piece of this is when we talk to Black women, we always talk about advocacy and advocating and advocating. You cannot advocate and birth at the same time. You can't
Uh,
live your life and birth at the same time. You can either
mm,
birth or you can fight for your life. So we have to talk about
woo,
this idea of removing the obstacles that require us to have to stand up in power and defend our lives, our safety, and our dignity,
that's right.
right? Instead of birthing. Why are we not just removing the obstacles to safe and healthy birth? Instead of
Mm,
talking about you need to do, no, they don't need to be powerful. They need to be vulnerable in this moment. They need to be soft in this moment, right? They're most
that's
powerful,
right.
vulnerable at the same time. And
Mm,
yet telling them to speak up. No, you shouldn't even be speaking. You should be in fully in your body,
that's right.
right? Undergoing an experience where you're protected and safe. And what we're
Mm,
doing instead is requiring people to be on guard, to be in defense mode, which actually is the antithesis of what birth is about. The birth is actually about softening, opening. It's
right.
about transcendence. It's about safety. You cannot give birth if you do not feel safe, just like you cannot be intimate if you do not feel safe.
That's right.
So, how are we asking people to stand in a posture of
Mm,
anticipation, right? Anticipating this, oh, here comes this threat, or here comes a person, going to question my dignity or challenge my safety, or, I'm going to defend myself in this moment and fight for myself.
right.
That is a lot to ask of somebody who's birthing. And it should not
That's
be
right.
something that we're asking Black women to do. It is continuing in this mode of, of operating that asks us to be strong already,
That's
right?
right.
being strong Black women, strong. We hear this like we don't need to be strong anymore, but also asking us to stand up for ourselves is asking for our strength. It's actually
That's
demanding our
right.
strength. And it's also demanding us to be strong because we refuse to create circumstances where you're safe.
Mm,
That is a violation of human rights. And so I
mm,
say this to say that disrespectful and undignified birth is a violation of human rights. And what is happening every minute of every hour of every day in this country is that somebody is birthing and they are in a community that is marginalized, and that person is having an experience of indignity,
mm.
and they are coming on the other side of their birthing experience, holding that psychic wound and carrying that with them instead of coming on the other side of that experience feeling wholly empowered.
That's
We got
right.
to be moving differently.
That's right. I love that I can just hear the megaphone. Like, this is your right? This is your call out, right? Something has to change.
Has to change.
Yeah,
We
we
all have to
have
do
to
our
change
part.
this. That's
We
right.
all have to do what we can, but this is like, I mean, I love that there's people who are so moved, but the answer is not telling Black women to learn how to stand up for themselves.
Oh, it's so
Um,
good. Thank you for naming that. Thank you for
it's just
calling
too
that.
much. Because here's the
It
other
is,
how
it
we're here's
is.
the other thing though that is to go deeper. The other
Mhm.
layer to this is that nobody has questioned the fact that these same people that were demanding to stand up for themselves are the same people who grew up being told not to stand up to authority, not to
Totally.
question their mothers, not to question their grandmothers, not you don't like it, you're going to do it cuz I said so. Right? You asking a question, it's
Wow.
cuz I said so. Right? You don't question your physician, you don't question the authority, you don't question your teacher. You yes ma'am, yes sir. Our whole
Wow.
lives, we have been indoctrinated to not disrespect and to bow your head, like all of these things that our great and great grandparents had to do to keep themselves alive,
That's right.
walking on the streets, living through Jim Crow terror, what they were doing to survive. They pushed that into
That's
how
right.
we function on a day to day life in community with people who are in positions of leadership. So teachers,
Mm,
coaches, physicians, whomever. And we have internalized that. And so we do not have, so every woman I come across, powerful in all these ways, can go into boardrooms, they could do all of that. When it comes down to speaking up for themselves, they cannot and do not
mm,
feel comfortable telling their physician that I don't want to do it this way, or I'd like to do it, or can we? They do not feel comfortable. I have to
mhm.
write scripts for people sometimes because
Sure.
they do not feel comfortable. We have to practice it
Mhm.
because they do not feel comfortable. You know why? Because it's not a muscle that we have
We have worked. That's right.
built. It's
That's right.
atrophied because we've never built that muscle. So on top of you not being equipped in the moment of birthing to actually be in a posture of protecting yourself, you don't even have the skills.
Right.
You don't even have the skills. So when it comes up, you're in your only possible way of approaching it is through defense, like you're a smaller animal having to fight against a bigger animal that's more
Sure.
powerful and you're outnumbered. So your only way of approaching it is one of like
Mhm.
to right get to safety.
That's right.
You do not have the bargaining or the languaging, like you don't have those tools cultivated.
Right, right.
So what are we talking about? Like, it's like a ridiculous thing to be talking about. Like, why are we telling people to do this? It's like so ridiculous. And
Right.
then on top of it, people don't even say how. They're not saying, well, you got to advocate. Okay, how do I advocate? Well, you got to speak up. Speak up how?
Yeah.
Because even when we talk about how to speak up, what we're saying is through the lens of not upsetting or not disturbing or not making any waves
Right.
to upset a person who's in a position of authority that we're engaging with. So we're not even actually using
Right.
communication strategy. We're not actually, right? We're literally just saying, like, make yourself smaller so that you
Yeah.
can hopefully navigate in a way that hopefully nobody gets upset. This is absurd.
That's right.
We need to actually be looking at the people who are in these places, making sure that the right people get trained and actually change the culture in these places so that for the
Mhm.
future, we can do it right. If we're going to
Mhm.
send people into hospitals. Now, conversely, if you want to birth at home or if you want to birth in birth centers, some people are great candidates for home birth, great candidates for birth centers. Some people are only candidates for hospital births. It's all good. Figure out who you
Right.
are because you may not be a hospital person. You may be a home birther and just don't know it yet, or vice versa. You might have been like, hey, I think I'm into home birth, but you might be a hospital birth. We don't know. You have to do the exploration,
Mm.
do the research. You have to pour that kind of energy into it like you would if you're buying a new car. Like, I need you to spend the whole
Mm.
year looking at those Carfax. I need you to spend an entire year in the same way and Googling and sending links back and forth and asking for I need you to do this, give the same energy to your preparation, the same energy,
So good. That's
right?
so good.
Bring that, right? And make sure you figure out what it is that works for you. I need people to do that because even if you do have a doula, there's only so much they can do to be helpful if
Yeah.
you are not driving in the driver's seat, right? For advocating. And the advocacy
Yeah.
does not happen during birthing. It happens along the entire pregnancy continuum. And hopefully in birthing, we are empowered and supported and surrounded by people
Mm.
can help us have the birth that we desire. And hopefully, even if birth doesn't go in the way that we desired, hopefully it doesn't mean that it was traumatic
Right.
because difficult births do not mean traumatic births, right? A birth can be difficult, a process can have been challenging and not be traumatic, right?
Mm.
Make sure like, usually all traumatic births are usually classified as difficult, but all difficult births are not traumatic. So even if something's challenging or even if something didn't go as planned, how am I coming on the other side of that? What tools do I have? What support do I have to come on the other
Right.
side and process that experience and feel whole and feel empowered, right? Like that's
Mhm.
important. It's really part of the doula's role. I think about part of my role is to preserve your memory of the birth. So much of what I'm
Mhm.
doing in preparation is thinking about how you'll tell that story, right? How that story will live in your body and
Mhm.
how you will, for years to come, imprint on other people with your birth story.
Ugh,
Are you ready for doula training?
so
Nah,
good. I'm like, I want it. Give me my gloves.
you're ready.
I'm ready. Oh, so much wisdom. Thank you for sharing all of that. I
Oh,
think you gave listeners that um, are pregnant or anticipating becoming pregnant, going through pregnancy, like some real steps and ways to prepare themselves. I'm curious around your legacy
mhm.
and your work. What do you hope continues to grow from your legacy work?
I hope that we have just like great people doing the work in the world.
Mm.
I just really want there to be one of the things was hopeful for in the beginning, and I always have these little, um, like, I don't know what to call them. They're daydreams or something that I have sometimes. And they're little like scenarios that I just like dream up. And sometimes it's like, "Oh, here's me at the Emmys accepting an award," and so I'll do my acceptance speech for stuff in the shower. Like, that's what I do. I tell my son all that. I'm like, "Do your Grammy speech in the shower. You just gotta do that every day," and so I do that. I do these little things where in my mind, I envision, one of the things I used to envision was I wanna be able to just if somebody's saying, like, they needed money, I wanna be able to just give it to them.
Mhm.
So I would envision a family member asking for something and then me just providing it, would be one of the things, and now I can do that, and I help a bunch of people now. Um, I would say handful, not a bunch. And then, one of the things also was I remember earlier on and because when we started in 2018, the program, within 9 months, we expanded from New York to LA, Miami, and Paris. And so, which is like Mama Glow hubs, right? Then
Right.
COVID, right? And then we went online and it grew like eightfold, which was huge.
Wow.
It expanded us, right? COVID was like huge for us. And so, which is so funny because I was watching other people collapse while we were like growing, which is so interesting, right? And
Sure.
so, um, and so I remember prior to that, I remember saying, I want it to be that one day people will walk up and they'll say, I took the class and I'll be meeting them for the first time. And I didn't
Um,
know what was going to happen. So
uh,
I thought of this. We were thinking about like, how do we expand the training and do something where I don't have to be in the city? Cause I was going to have to travel to these cities.
sure.
I was like, "How do we do it?" And nobody knew what Zoom was, by the way, which is so wild.
I know.
We heard of Zoom. It was like, "What's a Zoom?" You know?
Yeah.
Or "What is Zoom?" You know? It was just like a really
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
thing. And so I remember saying that, and then I remember, "Oh my goodness." I meet people all the time now, and they're like, "I took your class." I'm like, "You did?" You know? So it's amazing, right? Or I took this class, like, that we offer with this teacher or this class. I'm like, "Oh." So I love that. And I love just meeting people who are like, I follow the work, I'm into the work. I'm like, I love that. So just I feel that knowing that we create something that moves people, that's steady, that's like, powerful in the world to me means so much. And um and so yeah, so I feel like it's one of those things where as I think about it, it's like to me that's like the legacy building is
Yeah.
it's the storytelling, it's the pouring in and giving everything I know to other people so that they can actually make it their own and heal the world with it. That's to me the gift, right? Is like being when you talk about teaching and you see
Yeah.
just have students that turn out to be just so great and you're so happy for them and you get to like watch their success. Like that's what I feel like is part of it too, is like seeing
Mhm.
students turn into the next version of themselves and become great. And I've had so many great students like go to med school and other places and be great. And
Yeah.
and I think that's part of it for me. Is just like knowing that that's the kind of impact we can have and meeting people who are like, this work has changed my life and just knowing that, we can help people. We've had folks who are, like, formerly incarcerated or impacted by incarceration who do the work
Yeah.
and who are, like, working now and able to, like, make a living and help people in their communities and help people who are incarcerated. Like, to me, that's so powerful. So, I just love, like, those types of, little things of people's stories and how the work has changed their life.
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing such beautiful work. Thank you for who you are, what you offer the world, for taking time to be with us today. As we close, I ask every guest this question who joins me.
Mhm.
Um, or really, it's a fill in the blank. It's a simple phrase. When Black women exhale, fill in the blank.
When Black women exhale, the world comes into divine order.
Mm, it does. I agree.
Yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
putting everything together.
That's right.
I don't know if I know that people do know this, but for those who don't know it outside of our community, but for those who know it intra-communally, inside of our community, um, that is so much why we need spaces like this, right? To to remember to breathe, to remember to release, to remember to process and let go, and to integrate these tools. Um, I want to also thank you and commend you for um, centering the power also of reflection and of slowing down, of intention, because these are tools that have really been available to us generationally, but like we are actually now in a time where we can embrace them in
That's
safety, like we can actually practice them out
that's
loud
right.
and not like, tucked away or,
That's right.
hidden. And I think it's
Mhm.
such a blessing. And probably if I think about how our ancestral lineage and particularly our like the matrilineage like
Yeah.
looks down on us who
Mm.
can actually claim our rest, claim our space to like walk outside, to like connect with earth, to pick flowers, to make our food, to move our hips, like all these things, but
Yeah.
also like breathing, swaying. And I hope for somebody, they're like walking through a park or sitting under a tree or, at the farmer's market or doing something easeful and they get to hear this. And what a gift, right? And so I
Yes.
just thank you for creating a space because there are a lot of podcasts, obviously, but there are not always like intentional soft spaces
Yeah.
really with the um what's the word I'm looking for? Not just the intention, but with the like the ingredients, like like more like the sacred recipe, like already
Yeah.
have Black Girl Magic like written in it and like, placed inside of it to put it out in the world, like, people know it, they can recognize it, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so I just know that you poured so much of that love and that intention and, um and that, energy, right?
Yeah.
So that sisters could come and know that they're home and that they could be safe here. And so thank you for inviting me into that. I appreciate you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm welling up with emotion because that's my hope. That's my hope is that this is a somewhat of a container, a soft place for us to all land. So thank you for mirroring that back to me.
Yeah.
It's good to hear. So thank
Yeah.
you for being on the show.
Thank you for having and come visit us. Come to New York.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in to Ready to Exhale. Until next time, may you find moments to pause and exhale.